You can see my slideshow, right? And not my speaker stuff. Okay, perfect. All right. Well, welcome everybody. I am so excited to be here today. So thank you for having me. This is my first opportunity to get to do a series like this. And I'm so excited because we will be diving in and doing some hands-on stuff as we keep going through this series. So it will build upon each session. And you'll be getting a Google folder throughout this session that has the PowerPoints in it and some resources that I'm giving you. And there's some exciting stuff coming up. So today we're just going to cover some basics about technology access. And we're just going to do some discussions talking about it. And talking about benefits and risks of accessing technology and strategies for independence. Then as we go throughout the sessions, we're really diving into social media, promoting safety for that for individuals with IDD, and then online trust, because that's a huge thing when we're talking about social media and online relationships. All right. So let's kick this series off. Yay! So thank you for being with me on probably a lovely Thursday up there. Down here, it is wicked hot. My air conditioner can't keep up. All right, so a little bit about me. I am an assistant professor of special education at Eastern Kentucky University in Richmond, Kentucky, originally from North Dakota, so you might hear some Canadian accent coming out of me because I grew up close to the Canada border. I taught K through 12 special education. The majority of my experience is working with individuals with IDD, intellectual and developmental disabilities. So when I was doing my doctorate, I got assigned to teach digital literacy in a post-secondary education program for young adults with intellectual and developmental disabilities. And in that digital literacy class, I taught everything from emails to logging on computers to using photocopiers and scanners in workplaces, to emailing professors and setting doctor's appointments, using mobile food ordering apps, to using social media and being an advocate on social media. So I like to talk about my experience teaching those classes. That will come out a lot in this series. So I also teach undergraduate courses in special education, all disabilities, and I do the moderate to severe disabilities classes for graduate students. So I do a lot, but my passion is this that I'm doing right now. So I'm trying to get some cool things started with what I will be talking about at the end here. Okay, so I like to start all of my presentations and sessions with my why. Why this topic? Why should we be learning about this topic and promoting social media use and safety and technology use and safety? So I always start with this story. When I was at the University of Tennessee, my second semester there, teaching digital literacy to young adults with intellectual and developmental disabilities, I had a girl in this picture come up to me and she says, "Miss Mary Jo, are you going to teach me about social media?" And I was like, "Well, yes, this is this class, but can I ask a little bit more about that question? Why did you ask it to me? And why do you want to learn?" Those are my two questions to her. And her first response was, "Well, all my friends use social media, and I don't know anything that they talk about in their everyday conversations. They talk about somebody doing a dance, some kind of joke, and I'm left out. I don't know what they're talking about." And I'm like, "Oh, okay." So she wanted to be like her peers and talk with her peers about what's happening in the world, and on social media where her peers are. And then she asked me why she wanted to learn this, but then she said, "I have had nobody ever talk to me about this. Nobody's ever talked to me about social media, talked about using it, and I just feel left out and I want to learn." So I was like, well, I wonder if this is just this one girl that I'm working with, or if it's nationwide. So I did this with my dissertation, and I'll be sharing some examples of what I've learned through that, and really started to dig into it. And I found out it's a problem everywhere. All of my students were the same way, never had social media. Nobody talked to them about it, and they're ready to learn about it. So then I took social media research classes, and I was like, what is this social media thing? What is this safety? How can we ensure safety and accessibility when other people like aren't doing this? And really dug into it, and I learned a lot through that. So I will be sharing that wisdom with you. Yay. But the big thing I want to start with is the students that I worked with. They came to me not knowing how to type, not knowing how to use an email. They never had an email. They're 18 years old. For some reason, school never required them to have an email. So I had to teach them the basics. How do you log onto a computer? All they ever used was an iPad. How do you store your password safely? How do you use Microsoft Word and PowerPoint? So I taught them all of that, and they mastered it along with mastering social media safety. So these individuals that we're working with can learn to use this safely and independently. It's amazing. Some of mine have gone on to have best buddies pages that are shared throughout the whole state for best buddies. So it's pretty phenomenal. So let's chat about social media and technology. So that's a pretty powerful story that I like to begin with. All right. So today we will talk about a lot of the benefits of technology and social media use, the risks and dangers that come along with that, and what kind of strategies we can use for promoting independence in social media and technology use. And that will lead into the next session that we do, which is all about social media. Okay, so the first thing, I like to do these things called checkpoints. And these checkpoints are just questions to think about before we dive into the topics. So we will start with begin with benefits of social media and technology use. So my first checkpoint that I want us to think about is your perceived benefits of using social media and technology. So let's take some time to think about that. What do you perceive as beneficial for using social media? Why should people use it? Why should people use technology? What are the benefits of that? So go ahead and think about that for a while and for a minute here, and you can pop into the chat if I can find it, or come online and talk to me. So I can't find my Zoom control bar right now. There it is. All right. Hold on. There we go. Connecting with people. Absolutely. That is a great benefit of social media use. All right. Let me get back to my PowerPoint. Well, you guys have the professional Zoom. There we go. Okay. What else do you think would be benefits? Definitely connecting with people. What about finding, learning, and gaining knowledge? Absolutely. I was going to say that one next. Being in the know for water cooler chat. Yes. Yes, you are. When you're on social media, and you know all the lingo too, right? Like, what is it now? Slay, yes, queen, all of that stuff going through social media, right? You can use the latest slang. Love it. What about getting materials that you need? Like, how many of us DoorDash, right? I just did it a few days ago. Or have groceries delivered when we can't go outside. Easy to connect with helpers when needed. Absolutely. I love that one. Easy to connect with others. Perfect. You guys are awesome already. Oh, but this is exciting. Okay. So the supplies you need. Yes. Getting the supplies you need. Even getting the support you need too. That's a big one. And we'll talk about that one with social media. Okay. So all of you really talked about the benefits that I will be mentioning. And then we will look at the real benefits for individuals with IDD too. So before I go, a little disclaimer about benefits of technology and social media use. Throughout my research, I found that for one to gain all of these benefits of social media, we have to have three kinds of perceptions. So the first is we have to find this to be useful. We have to find technology, social media, email, whatever we're using to be useful, to get some sort of benefit out of it. If it's not useful, we're not going to use it, right? Then we need to find benefits. We need to see it as beneficial. Otherwise, again, we're not going to use it. And then easy to use is a big one too. If it's easy to use, we're going to use it more often. If it's hard, we get frustrated and stop using it, right? So we can gain benefits of using social media technology without any of this. However, with all three, that perception that it's beneficial, useful, and easy to use, we have more benefits. So how we get all these perceptions is really through this education that you guys are actually participating in right now, through support, through materials that might be adapted for individuals with IDD. So we can make it easy to use. We advocate for accessibility. So all three of those things are very important. Just a little thought to throw out there. That's kind of my nerdiness about this. I had to talk about that. Okay, so you guys talked a lot about benefits that you see. And these are the benefits that come up if you just go and Google benefits of social media safety. Everyone experiences these benefits. So you can independently perform tasks, right? I can have the computer read to me. I can dictate to my computer and it can type to me. I mean, all of us might use the little microphone on text messaging that says, you know, we talk it and it types it for us. I do that a lot. We might use technology to set doctor's appointments instead of making that phone call. We might use it to set reminders for things. So technology can help us perform things, and it can help individuals with IDD do this as well. So another benefit is you have access to a wider world. We're not just in our little community, we can access outside of it. We can see global events. We can see global information that's happening out there. For example, if somebody wanted to follow the World Special Olympic Games happening last month, they could go on to technology and find the news about that. Access to information. Somebody said that you have access to information out there to learn things, to find out things, communicate with others was one you mentioned. And this was one that I was really surprised. Somebody mentioned it in a way with the help for connecting with helpers when needed. But this access to greater safety measures is really a fascinating thing with technology. So if you have an iPhone, there's SOS settings on it. There are in case of emergency contacts on there. Same thing, other phones might have the in case of emergencies, but it might not be the setting on the iPhone where you push that side button so many times and SOS comes up if you're in danger. But there are things like apps that can also help with safety. You might use Life 360, which is an app for sharing location with your family members so they know where you are. You might have emergency contacts on there to in a little thing under favorites so you can contact them. A cool thing that I just started doing with some of the people that I work with is using pictures for your contacts. We all have little pictures in our little circles. No matter what phone you use, there's a picture next to your contact. So I had a mother actually say, you know, 911 is easy to dial, but I want immediate access for my child if that has to happen. So under in case of emergency, if she made a screenshot of 911 and put it in the picture profile so that they could see, oh, this is 911, I'm going to push that picture and it will call them instead of having to dial it in. So you have the ability to change the settings of technology for making greater safety measures. So those are just a few benefits. There's so many more that I don't have on here, like taking online classes and working from home, like somebody mentioned. All of those are so beneficial for technology. But when I do my research for social media and technology, these are the main benefits that come up. And it's really fascinating. We're going to discuss some of these. So the first one is social. You guys have mentioned this. You keep in contact with others through social media, right? Friends move away, we can talk to them. However, for individuals with IDD, there's also another fascinating thing about the social aspects of social media. And that fascinating thing is there's an accessible language. I can appropriately communicate using visuals on social media. That means I can use emojis, I can use memes, I can use GIFs, I can use pictures. Instagram is a picture-based social media. So I'm communicating through images, through visuals, which is more accessible than maybe higher grade level reading text, right? So social media, you have that ability to communicate through the pictures. And that is seen as age appropriate on social media. So that's a really fascinating thing for the young adults that I taught. When they learned how to use memes and GIFs, they were using it all the time. However, know that when you use memes and GIFs, there is figurative language on it, right? So there's a lot of hidden jokes. There's a lot of hidden language there that we have to teach. But pictures, huge thing on social media, especially if you use the picture-based sites. Learning is another benefit. When you use social media, the more you use it, you get more exposure to reading and writing. You get more practice reading and writing. You learn new concepts. You might be able to learn what your favorite celebrity is doing. You might be able to learn what new coupon to use, right? Like I get super excited when a company says, hey, 50% off if you use this coupon, right? So you can learn what's happening in the world too. The other cool thing about social media, and this is really emerging in the field for young adults with IDD, is it's this safe place to learn their identity. So learning not only who they are, but I have had parents talk to me about social media, helping them learn about sexuality. And we'll talk about that in a few sessions from now about when they're learning about sexuality, making sure if that is happening online, it's a safe thing. But I've had some parents that are like, and rather them learning on there than out in the streets. So there is that. It's a safe place to learn about disability as well. There's tons of disability activists on social media that talk about disabilities. And they can go and learn, hey, it's not bad that I have Down syndrome. I can be very activist, just like these people. I worked with a young girl that had autism, and she loved following, I forget who it is. I think it's Hats by Abby. She's a young adult with autism, and she talked about autism and what it's like. And she's like, yeah, I feel that too. I'm not alone anymore because none of my friends don't have autism, or all my friends don't have autism. So I finally see somebody who's like me. So it's a safe place to really engage in that. Self-esteem is another big one for young adults with IDD that's coming through social media. When you create profiles, you can create your own, what we call self-presentation. That means I can present myself in a way I would like to do that. So if I don't want people to know that I'm a professor of special education, I don't have to put that on there. If I do want them to know it, I can put it on there. So it's a way of creating ourselves in a way we want people to see us versus how they see us in real life if they would meet us in person. So it really gives these young adults a chance to create their own selves in the way they would like to be seen. So that's a really interesting thing coming through the autism community right now. There's a fascinating study about self-presentation out of Brazil with the autism community. It's really interesting. So inclusion in society is another big one. There's a digital world. We are now digital forever. I believe COVID has ruined it. Everything is technology. I mean, we now go to the grocery store and it is digital everything. Scan this QR code for a coupon. Put in your alternate ID to Kroger to get your discounts or whatever you're doing there. So it's a digital world. We are now forever stuck using technology. COVID, again, has really increased our reliance on technology. So when we think about COVID and what it did for society and individuals with IDD, we went from this place where we could kind of get by without using devices, sort of. And then suddenly there was this really distinct line where it's going from, oh, you could do things without technology. No, not anymore. You need to have technology to do anything. All jobs will require some kind of technology use if you want above entry level pay. Going on in society now, everything is becoming digital. My sister and I were just talking about airports. You go through airports and now everything is touch this, touch that, scan things yourself and pay digitally, pay with Apple Pay. Everything is becoming like that right now. And it's really interesting. And we have to create a lot of education to help individuals with IDD be included in this digital world. The next one is actually one that I experienced this weekend with storms here in Lexington, emergency contacts and information. So social media is really beneficial for pushing out emergency information and contacting people in case of emergencies. I've had parents contact me and say, I want them to use social media because when I'm at work and they can't get a hold of me, they know they can find neighbor Susie on social media and call her when there's an emergency. They know they can find John down the road and call him on Facebook if there's an emergency. So there's somebody to contact when the main contacts aren't available, and a way to contact them. The other thing is when phone lines go down, when power goes down, we still have access to this 5G thing, right? This 5G thing that where we can still access our Facebook and our Instagram and our Twitter. And sometimes that's our only source of information when there's a real emergency. So the Gatlinburg wildfires, I was in Tennessee during that time. And I had friends out in the mountains where this was happening. And their phone lines were down, their power was out. The only way they could find a route out of the fires was through Facebook. People would tweet or post on Facebook, take this route, or this one's now blocked. So they would constantly get through their social media or get on their social media for that information. Hurricane Katrina, we saw the same thing. And this weekend here in Lexington, we had a major storm come through. We were without power for over 24 hours, and news channels went through Facebook Live to post, hey, there's a tornado here there's not, because their stations were down. So we got life-saving information through Facebook in that time. So it's really interesting to see that emergency stuff is now using social media. They're now being able to contact and push information out through that. So that's a really big benefit now that is up and coming on social media. The last benefit that I like to talk about for individuals with IDD using social media is advocacy. You're able to advocate for disability rights, for accessibility, awareness and acceptance of disability. For example, July is Disability Pride Month. And all over social media, you can use a hashtag that says Disability Pride Month, and you can see posts about that. People advocating for their disabilities or for their siblings with disabilities or their child with a disability or their friend. It's really, really cool seeing that happen right now. There are a lot of advocates right now on social media, or influencers, I guess is what I should call them technically. I'll use the correct terms, influencers that have disabilities, and they advocate for their communities and for others who have their disabilities as well. So these are a few that I like to follow and tell individuals with IDD, hey, follow this. You can see how they're doing great work advocating for their communities, for others in their communities. So these are a few great ones. There's only 3 of them. There's a huge list of people with IDD. You can Google and find it. These are the ones that I do follow, but these are the ones that I say, hey, follow them, see how they're advocating. It's also a great way to show how these young people, because they're all 20s and 30s, these young people with disabilities are handling the people who they might call haters. They come on and they say mean things about them, and how they address it is really, really cool to see. So I like to show people that I work with things like that. I'll see how they're addressing this and see how they're advocating and being an activist for their community. So these are only 3. They're really great at these are only ones with Down syndrome too, but they're really great at advocating and being activists. All right. So those are the benefits, but I really want to talk about my own research and what I found through this. So little setup of this. When I did my dissertation, I did 2 different kinds of studies, but one was a accessible survey that I sent out nationwide to young adults with intellectual disabilities. And it was formed with just pictures and videos. So it was me reading a prompt, the picture supports were there, yes or no was the answer. So I really universally designed this survey to get good results. And so I had 141 young adults take this survey, and I asked them a few things, but one of them were, here are 12 benefits. And it was, do you see this? Facebook is beneficial for this? Yes or no. Do you see it as beneficial for this? Yes or no. So out of 12, they went through and they just clicked yes or no for the things. And this is what I found. The top 5 things. Number 1 that they said was beneficial for social media, 13 to 24-year-olds with intellectual disability. They said number 1 was talking to family and friends, using Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and Snapchat to talk to friends and family was number 1 reason to use it, number 1 benefit. The second one was having fun, either through playing games or chatting with others. The third one was learning new things. So learning new things about their interests was really the reason they stated that. So if they had a certain interest, they could go and look it up and find and learn new things about it. The fourth was finding information. So finding information about household things like doing household chores to their favorite celebrity. A lot of them used it to find information about their favorite celebrities. And the fifth one was seeing what others are doing, seeing what their peers are doing and keeping up with them, and really being able to participate and engage in what others are doing. So those were the top 5. The other ones that were listed were things like showing people who I am as a person. They were all above 50% yes for all respondents, but these are the top 5, which is really cool because it really aligns to what everybody experiences with social media. All of you have mentioned exactly those 5 things. So there's no difference. It's really cool. I find it fascinating. I'm a nerd, but it's really cool. There's no difference. We all experience these benefits, but especially these young people with intellectual disabilities. All right. So, that's a lot about benefits. I could talk about this forever, but I'm going to stop with that. So, benefits are, when I first started this research, I engaged in conversations. I'm actually going to be up in your area, up in DC this week, engaging with local or Kentucky Congress people about things like this, accessibility. And when I talk to these people, a lot of things that come up are, social media is beneficial. Yes, I get benefits about using it. However, I have concerns about people with intellectual disabilities using it. And I was like, oh, please tell me more. And they're like, well, they're really vulnerable. And I'm like, well, aren't we all? We're all vulnerable. Just the other day, I got a text message saying, hey, your UPS package was taken back to the distribution center. Click here to claim it. Well, it's a scam. I did not click it because I've seen that as a scam before. But how many people fall for that? We're all vulnerable to this kind of stuff. So I like to lead with that. So when they throw that out to me, I say, well, we all are. And how we combat that is through education. We all have learned how to not fall for a scam. So it's very important to teach this. So now with that, I'm going to go into the risks because the risks tend to outweigh decisions when helping individuals with IDD use social media. So a lot of people tend to throw the benefits out and say, oh, but the risks are too risky. We can't let this happen. So I like to lead with that before we get into this, because a lot of people will say, nope, it's not happening. We're too vulnerable. But you will learn strategies to help these individuals do this safely and independently. So just like benefits, checkpoint number 2 with the risks. I like to call it risks instead of dangers. It sounds better in my opinion, but think about the risks of using social media and technology. What are your perceived risks of using it? So when you think about somebody using it, what do you think would be a risk of using social media and technology? I gave you a few examples. Adding to a Facebook group. Oh, you're getting really, really specific there. Yes. Yes. So Facebook groups can be really risky because there's a lot of strangers on there. And a lot of those strangers might not be people who should engage with us. What else would be a risk? Cyberbullying, very much so. And the emotions that come with that. Easy for hackers to get into accounts. Yes. Sharing personal information. Yes. Absolutely. Spend money on wisely. I love it. Yes. Especially in games. Games are really, really try to make you spend your money. Taken advantage of for privacy and body. Yes, I've got lots of stories about that one. Yeah. Well, I'll talk about that one in the next session. Perfect. Oh, you guys are awesome. I love it. So back to the spending money on wisely thing. I worked with my graduate assistant. I'm developing a website. It's called Digital Literacy for All, and it will host adapted materials for individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities to learn about digital literacy. So my graduate assistants helped me build this website. It's not released yet. It's gonna be soon, I promise. But it's really cool because this will have things from accessing technology, like there's a text talk page that you can scroll over the text talk like LOL, and it will say what LOL means and give you definitions, examples of how to use it, and you can practice using it in the website. Then there's things about online trust, and it'll give you scenarios. Should you trust this person? Should you not? So you can practice in that safe place of that website. But that's just a few things. It's going to be really awesome. I just haven't, published it, but it's coming. So when you talk about that spending money on wisely, one of my GAs is all about this token boxes. I think I don't know what it's called. It's a thing in games where they try to spend money. So he developed materials for that. So I got off topic with that, but thank you. Not being able to identify who's a friend is huge. Yes. And if you're making meaningful online relationships with others, you might friend somebody you don't know, and they might actually turn out to be a really good friend, but they might not. Awesome. You have mentioned all of the risks of using technology and social media. So I like to talk about, with these risks, there are two different things. You have all mentioned this. There is the risk of being a victim of this, and there's also a risk of unknowingly being the perpetrator of it. So I like to talk about an example where I did a fireside chat for the Arc of Northern Virginia. And that was where I talked to their person first group. And we talked about social media, and it was great. We spent 2 hours together doing this. And we were talking cyberbullying. And one of them said, I said, what would you do if somebody said this to you? And I said something mean. And I was like, don't take it offensively. This is just somebody said it to me. What should I do? And somebody said, say something mean back. And I looked at them and I was like, great idea, but does that make us a cyberbully? And they're like, oh, yes, it does. We said something mean. We acted like a cyberbully back to them. So we have all somehow, sometime in our lives, unknowingly been a perpetrator of this kind of stuff too. So the big research right now is saying that individuals with IDD can be a victim of this. Yes, we're very vulnerable to being victim, but we can also unknowingly be the perpetrator of it. So to avoid this, we have to provide guidelines for what does this look like? What does it look like if you are a predator? What does it look like if you are the cyberbullier? And how do we address that? That will all be coming in later sessions. So know that you can be the victim and you can be the perpetrator of this, and it can be done unknowingly. Now, I didn't put things in this slideshow. I debated about it this afternoon, but I know I'm going to run out of time already. So artificial intelligence, I'm just going to throw it out there. So AI, if you don't know what that is, it's huge right now with ChatGPT, but it's this artificial intelligence where you can type in things and it will type something back. It will write an email for you. It will compose music for you. I mean, it's crazy what artificial intelligence does. So artificial intelligence can be an incredible tool for individuals with IDD. It can help them write those professional emails. It can help them call and make doctor's appointments. It can help them do other, basically make meal plans, make budgets. I mean, it's crazy what you can do with AI. However, AI is getting so smart that it is beating me in figuring out how to teach about scams and fraud. Every day it gets smarter and smarter. So on the news a few days ago, somebody got a video call from Ryan Reynolds and they talked to him, but it wasn't Ryan Reynolds. It was AI. It was an AI voice, AI face, somebody else behind that screen. So when I teach about predators, scams, and fraud, we really have to start thinking about artificial intelligence too, and thinking about, okay, AI might have some things that are recognizable that we need to look for. And that's my current research that I'm working on, because again, AI is beating me. It's beating me, and I'm trying to help these individuals be safe as AI develops. So just know, be aware that AI is out there and it is smart. And but there are things you can catch about AI. There's certain language use with AI. It tends to be more formal than people are. Videos tend to be a little less, they don't move like real people if you look closely. But again, it's getting smarter every day and might start using phrases like slay and yes, queen. Who knows? So AI is another danger that I did not put on here because right now it is a whole different world, I actually had a student use an AI to write a term paper, and it took me forever to prove it. So it's very, very smart. All right. So other things to consider with these risks are a few things that tend to get mentioned, but not as much because addressing it is difficult. However, I've worked on some things to help with this. So technology addiction is a huge thing. I've had young adults with IDD get completely addicted to using social media. I have friends on there. The friends, there goes my dog. The friends communicate with me, and the friends like my stuff. So I'm addicted to it. I'm sitting at the dinner table on my phone, all the time doing things. There's also addiction to pornography. That's been one that I've been asked frequently to work on for individuals with IDD. So that's another risk to be aware of. Other things are these desires for scam items. So a story about this is I was working with a 26-year-old with Down syndrome, and I gave her a message to practice with. And the message said, you want a free cruise. All you have to do is give me your social security number and you have the ticket to the Bahamas. And so thankfully it was on paper, but she wrote in her social security number. And I looked at her and I was like, I have worked with you a month on this. Why would you give me your social security number? And she's like, oh, because I just want the cruise. I will take the risk for the cruise. So know that there is this strong desire for some items that might be scammed. I might really have a desire to get those Taylor Swift tickets. And so I will put in my information for that. I might really have a desire to get those $2 Stanley tumblers. That was one of my neighbors last week, and it was a scam. So you might have those desires for that. Another one is this concept of going viral. If you have children or clients or students who are younger, they might have this desire to go viral, be an influencer, because everyone their age is doing that right now. So they might have adding all those strangers to have as many followers as possible. They might be doing more videos to be able to go viral. So that's another consideration for that. I once did a social experiment with my class of students, and we tagged a celebrity on something, and she reposted it and it went viral through her, and they watched my account as it happened and saw what happens when you go viral, the amount of hate messages you get, the amount of spammers spamming you. So there are things that we can discuss for people who want lots of friends online, but there is that. And the other big thing that I've been seeing for especially the younger ones is this creation of more than one profile across social media platforms. So we might all have one profile on Facebook, one profile on Instagram, one on Snapchat. However, some of the younger ones might have 3 profiles on Facebook, 3 on Instagram, and 3 on Snapchat. And on these profiles, they present themselves differently. So I've had a few students that I've worked with that have done that. And we will talk about that and why that happens in our social media sessions to come. So know that that's also a risk that is out there that we need to consider. All right. So on this survey that I did for my dissertation, I also asked young adults with intellectual disabilities about risks that they might come across. And so I gave them 13 risks that research out there says these are risks of using social media. And I gave them all 13, and I said, if somebody asked you for a picture of you, would you know what to do? And they click yes or no. And so I found some pretty interesting things. And again, these are 13 to 24-year-olds with intellectual disability. And the things that I found was the one that they really didn't know how to combat or address was getting hacked. If my account is hacked, what do I do? How do I change my passwords? How do I reach out to people and say, hey, my account is hacked, don't add me? So they didn't know anything about being hacked. And it was really, I think that was my lowest category there. The other one was not knowing what to do if somebody sent messages as them. So hacked their accounts and sent messages to other people. And maybe those messages weren't good messages. They didn't know how to deal with that. So that was the highest category where no strategies were known. They didn't know what to do with that. The other ones, though, the category where they knew the most, it was still only 45 to 65% of all 141 participants. So it's still a small number. But the highest where they did know something about how to address it was if they were cyberbullied. If somebody said mean things to them or asked them for pictures, or asked for personal information. So cyberbullying and predators was that highest category where they knew strategies. So if we think about that, I remember looking at that data and saying, well, why is that? Like, that's the one where there's the most risk, but like, why is this all flipped? Like, I thought it was really interesting because I thought it would be the other way around. And then we think about what schools teach, right? Schools teach a lot about cyberbullying and predators. So I was like, well, that must be the case there, and why that was the category where they knew the most strategies. So the things that I found that I find fascinating is that those that were younger, the 13 to 18-year-old group, and males of all. That's really interesting. So males and high school age students have less knowledge of what to do when there's a cyber safety online danger presented to them. So if you think about that, we tend to talk to females more about predators and cyberbullying. We see them as more vulnerable. So the males don't tend to get that as much. And then the other thing that came through that survey was all of these young adults wanted to use social media. I think I had two that were like, nope, don't want anything to do with it. But they wanted to learn how to do it safely and to be in this online place. So fascinating things coming out of that. So also when thinking about technology, we have these benefits, we have these risks, but there's also a thing we have to think of for individuals with IDD, and that's barriers. There are barriers to using technology and social media. And through my research, I found that the number one barrier is accessibility. You log on to Facebook, there's stuff everywhere. People use complicated language. It's not as accessible. But if you go on Instagram, it's all picture-based. So it's a little more accessible. Twitter doesn't have any pictures. Well, I think you can post a picture with it, but not many people do. So accessibility is a huge barrier. It's getting a little better, a little bit every day, as people consider universal design a little more for social media. It's getting a little better. Troubleshooting is another big thing. I mean, how many of us have something come up and you can't do anything, so you automatically hit control, delete, control, whatever, delete. So troubleshooting. What happens when my computer stops working? My phone stops working. What do I do? That's a barrier. Coping with strong emotions that may arise. This is a huge one that we'll talk about next week. Actually, I think it's this session 3. But when you're talking cyberbullying and predators, there might be fear that you have to address. There might be stress, there might be anxiety when we talk about it. So there are strong emotions that come out of social media use. We might see something graphic and it bothers us. So we all have emotions that come out of what we see. So another barrier would be, how do we cope with those emotions from things that we experience online? And then how do we address dangers when they have occurred? So next week, I'll talk a lot about, not next week, session 2, we'll talk a lot about when we're addressing social media dangers. We tend to do it in a safe place, because if we do it in this safe place where it's not online, we can make mistakes. But when we make a mistake in an online place, it's a one and done kind of deal. So I click the link to get my UPS package. They already have my data. I can't go back and fix that. So it's a one and done thing. I make the mistake, there's repercussions for it. However, if I take it out of this online place and we work on it together in a safe place, I can make those mistakes without that happening. And you'll get strategies on how to do that in a few sessions. So when we are, when these dangers occur, how do I address these? What do I do? So I worked with a young adult. I think she was 22 on Facebook. Some stranger reached out to her and told her to take a video of herself changing clothes. And she did it. She didn't know what the danger of doing it was. She did it and shared it with him. And it led to her being banned from Facebook for life. And there are other things happening too. But her parents contacted me and were like, we contacted Facebook and told them the situation. And they realized, oh, it wasn't her fault that this happened. She was a victim of a predator. And so they gave her account back, but she was fearful of ever touching social media again. There was huge repercussions for it. She knew this was out there now, her picture or her video. So it was a one and done thing. She couldn't make that mistake. That video is now out there. I think Facebook, I wasn't part of that, but I think they had to go and delete the video, and there was this whole thing about it. But things like that happen. What do we do if these dangers do occur? How do I contact that support and say, hey, I got this going on and we need to fix this. This is the situation. And how do we avoid that so it doesn't ever actually occur? So that will happen in a few sessions. We'll talk about that. The other big one too, about a barrier to social media use for individuals with IDD, is limited resources, limited training, especially those that are adapted. They use visuals, they use clear language, and all of these evidence-based teaching practices for individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities. There's also limited support for direct support professionals on how to deal with this sort of stuff when it happens, and for families. And so that's an area where I have really been devoting my time. Yay, and that's why I'm here. So those are huge barriers to technology and social media use. All right, so you're probably sitting there thinking exactly what this little squirrel's thinking. Where do we go from here? You have told us 20 minutes of benefits, 20 minutes of risks, 10 minutes of barriers. What do I do? Okay, so this is my answer. The answer is, you're not going to walk away from session 1 with, yes, this is what I'm going to do. You're going to have to come to all 6 sessions because we're really going to dive in session 2. But this is my answer. 1, we need to educate. We need to provide education, strategies, resources to help individuals with IDD make their own decisions for social media use. And by making our own decisions, I mean being able to make safe decisions. And so all of the strategies and resources that I will be presenting to you, I have used for years with young adults with intellectual disabilities and individuals in their 30s. So there aren't things that I'm just throwing out there. They have been tested. They do work. I get parental feedback on it. I'm also going into schools and working with students on it. So providing these materials in a place where we can help educate and help provide. All right, here, this is what we do. This is how we make our safe decisions. We can pull it back out if we need to. So educate. Second thing is advocate. Advocate for rights of using social media. Next session, I will be talking about age limits for social media use. It's changing in a few states, not in your state, but a few states are bumping it up to 16. There are also things like the TikTok ban that's currently going on, but advocating for rights to using social media. So if you might be a direct support provider, you have a 30-year-old that might want to use social media, what are their rights to using social media, and how do I advocate for that? All right. So educate, advocate, and empower. So we can empower by providing safe spaces to discuss and learn about social media use and safety. So whether that is having discussions, I'll give you resources that will help you with have discussions about social media risks, or just where do I go to learn about this, to help them learn how to use Facebook, because maybe I don't know how to use it. And I'll show you some of that stuff too as we go throughout. So in a nutshell, 5-minute discussion there. The answer of where do we go from here is those three things. But in this series, we're really focusing on that first one, educate. Where do I get the resources I need to be able to educate my child, my client, my student, whoever, to make safe decisions on social media? So that will be sessions 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's coming. Okay. So in the last 30 minutes here, I'm going to share with you technology access. So we've jumped from technology to social media back to technology. So technology use is like using your phone, using your laptop, using your iPad, QR codes, even social media is part of technology, but we're really going to stick with devices. So what kind of strategies can we use to help individuals with IDD use this independently? Okay, so the first thing I want to share with you is this list of critical, I call them e-skills. So they're skills of using the internet. So it's not really social media, it's an e-skill. So the pandemic really taught us that individuals with IDD need to be able to use these things. They need to be able to do these things to participate in the global world. So we really saw a need for email during the pandemic, whether it was school, work, organizations emailing us, we needed some kind of email. Even setting up doctor's appointments, you need emails. The next one was being able to do video calls. Everything, we're in a video call right now, right? So how do I get that Zoom link? How do I click into it? How do I close out of it? Turn my microphone off, turn my microphone on. So being able to video conference is another e-skill that was critical, and it still is. Using the internet, critical. Virtual learning for those that are younger, that was very, very vital during the pandemic, being able to learn in an online space. Social media became huge during the pandemic because that was where you got your information. That was also how you kept in touch with others when we were restricted to our houses. Typing was a huge one, or using speech to text or text to speech. Logging into accounts, changing passwords is a big one, especially for school accounts. Netiquette is one that I'll touch on with, I think it's session 5. But if you don't know what netiquette is the social skills of the internet. So I'll give you an example of netiquette. I have a student, he's probably 28 now, he still texts me, and he he would text me messages that are so long that it would have a little arrow, and you would click the arrow and it would take the messages into the Notes app on the iPhone, and it would show the whole message. So this message was really the same paragraph copied and pasted 5 times. But the netiquette thing was when he sent 3 of those in a row, that would completely bog down your phone, so you couldn't do anything. It would pretty much lock your phone up because all these messages were coming through with the arrows that you had to click, and it was just a mess. And so he ended up calling me one day and saying, none of my friends respond. And I was like, well, what do you mean? He's like, no one talks back. I was just like, it took me forever to realize that no, people were blocking him. They were blocking him because he didn't have the social skill of, there goes my dog. He didn't have that social skill of the internet saying, if I send too many long messages like this so frequently, it annoys people and they will block me. So netiquette for him was learning about, he calls it the Twitter rule, sending messages that are 240 characters long. And if I need to send another one, do that. So netiquette, the social skills of the internet. If I type in all capital letters, people might think I'm mad, or I'm excited. Maybe I just have my caps lock on, right? So the use of netiquette, that's what that is. The social behaviors of the internet, and booking appointments was really big during the pandemic. So these are all critical e-skills that came out of that are very important for participating in the world today, as we get more and more digital. All right. So the big one that I always get from parents is, oh, the problem with accessing accounts is you have to have 3 different passwords for 3 different accounts. And how do they remember all these passwords? So we had to think about a way to secure these passwords and store them in a place that could be accessed. So when I was working with, we had to have Zoom passwords, email passwords. They had Facebook passwords because we used Facebook for class. But when I was working with young adults with IDD, we would be working on, where do I store my passwords so that I remember them, because I have to change them every so often. So they actually came up with these. I had one that would just text themselves their password, because you can text yourself, and then they would text themselves a picture or something underneath it, so nobody knew their passwords were there. I thought that was a good idea, but then I was like, well, then you have to scroll back forever to find your passwords, and it's still really there. So it's a great thing, great strategy to use. It's a strategy. But my number one strategy for them was, if you have an iPhone, using notes on it, because on your notes, you can now password protect them. You can use set a Face ID on it, so it's secure. But the students that I worked with would label it something like places I want to go, and it was all their passwords, or favorite shopping places, favorite movies, so that it was a disguised title. Nobody knew, hey, passwords, that's the title of the notes, right? Passwords all right there. So they would actually disguise it, or like my dog's names or something like that. So that tended to be the favorite of all my students, because they could have that all in one document, and it was secure because you can set passwords and Face IDs now to protect it. I did have a few that were like, nope, not doing that. So they still use the old sticky note version, which is totally fine too. But make sure those sticky notes are in a secure place. So some of them would actually put it behind their phone case, and their phone case was like covered so that you couldn't see that there are sticky notes under it. So that was where they would store their usernames and passwords securely. Just some ideas there for you. Okay, so another big strategy for teaching independence and technology use is using what's called task analysis. If you don't know what that is, it's a detailed step-by-step set of directions that is so detailed that if you follow it exactly, you will have completed the task. So when I taught my first class of digital literacy, I made all of these task analysis cheat sheets for different varieties of technology tasks. So on this slide here, you'll see an example of how to log into Gmail. Now, this was for a student who didn't need visual supports. Their reading levels were on par. They didn't need any, I could just type it out and it was there. So they would follow all of this and they'd be logged into Gmail. So that was one thing that you can do. You can just write out all the steps. It's there, right? But my favorite was, I'll come back to video modeling, this. So this is visual checklists. It's a series, it's a set of task analysis. It's those details, steps, but it has the visual supports in it. So if you look at this, this was really 2 pages. I just combined it onto one slide. But this is for logging on to our university computers. And as you can see, you have the text written there, but you also have the pictures. So I would have some that would look at this and they'd look at the bolded words and they'd say, okay, computer on. And then they'd look at the picture and say, okay, I need to push that where that blue button is. I need to left click on that mouse to go to this username page. And if they know that it's not on, I go to the next one that says off, and then I would click the side of the computer to turn it on. This is how detailed I had to get because my students had never used computers like this before. It's just iPads. So then we would go through and there's more visuals on where do you put your net ID for logging in? Where do you put your password? Some of them would write their password and usernames into those little things, and then they'd have it in a binder hidden. But all of this is a visual step-by-step on how to do a certain task. So this is logging into the computer. In the Google folder you have, I think the one I put in is how to do emails. So it's a PDF that has how do you compose an email, step-by-step visual checklist of that. How do I send an email? Step-by-step visual checklist of that. I forget what the other email is. So I put that in as an example. I have some more that are coming that I'll upload for you. I have to update them though, because the software has updated since the last time I made them. So you have some that are coming once you get that folder. So those visual checklists were great because what I did was I printed them all off. I put them into a little sheet protector because you can write on sheet protectors. So with a little marker, whiteboard marker, you can check off. All right, I did put my username on, check, go to the next one, check, did that, check. And then I can erase it and reuse it how many times I need to. So I had this all in a binder for the kids that came through my class, and they had little tabs where they knew this is logging on, this is email, this is whatever, and they could pull it out when they needed it. So what I found was they would have their peer buddies with them in my class, but what I found was they would rather use that binder. They were independent in using it. They didn't need their peer buddy to help them log on the computer. So then they could access it whenever. So that was great. So visual checklist is huge for helping with independence. They can pull it out whenever they need. The other one is video modeling. This one was really cool because when COVID started, I went from in-person classes teaching technology where I could do like, all right, I'm modeling for you and I'm coming and helping you do it. I can be there, direct instruction, to having to teach technology on Zoom. Quite a change. So we went to spring break and they never came back. That was nationwide what happened, right? So I found out the Friday before we left that we weren't coming back. And quickly I was like, oh, I don't know what I'm going to do. They've never used Zoom before. I've never used Zoom before. So I quickly created a video model of it. I quickly learned how to use Zoom and made this video. And the video is really just the task analysis and video step where I'm modeling for them using screen markings and where to click and things like that. But what was great about this video is the students saved it to their phone so that when they needed it, they could go and watch how to get on Zoom and they could do it themselves. They would sit there and watch it and be like, okay, link is in the email. This is what it will look like. Click, and they could go and pause it and follow the steps. And I actually had parents call me and they're like, oh my gosh, I use it so that I can learn how to use Zoom. So that example that's on there is really old. Oh my gosh, that was during my dissertation days. I looked different. So it's a great example if you want to look on that, because the slides are also in that folder for session 1. I don't have the other sessions uploaded, but those will come. So video modeling is great. You can access it whenever on any device I just use a YouTube link uploaded to YouTube. Visual checklist is great. I will upload some more on session 1 for accessing technology. You have the email examples right now, but I have a lot more that I can share with you. Okay, the other thing is frequent review. We all know that if we have a skill and we don't use it, we lose it, right? Use it or lose it is what people say. So if we have a skill like emailing and we take a month off or 2 months off and we don't use it that frequently, we lose that skill. So when we are working with individuals with IDD, we need to frequently review these skills. We need to come and say, all right, let's practice sending an email. Okay, let's practice this. So when we're frequently reviewing it, we can maintain those skills. The other thing is if we use those video models, those visual checklists, we can access it whenever. However, disclaimer there, you do need to update it as technology updates, because I have ran into those problems. I used to have visual checklists on how to set, and I'm not going to share them with you because they're way out of date, but how to set privacy settings on Facebook. And you can actually, if you don't know this, we'll learn it more later on, but I'll share it with you. When you are around people, let's say I'm around my friends, I like to use an example of air purifiers. So air purifiers, I was looking for an air purifier once, and my sister lives in South Dakota. I went and visited her over Christmas. And all of a sudden I get a text from her saying, hey, check out this air purifier. And I'm like, well, how did you get that? She's like, well, it came up as an ad on Facebook. And I'm like, well, that's weird. We were just talking about it. Like, it's like Facebook was listening, right? We all have those experiences. We're like, oh my gosh, I was just thinking about those shoes and there they are, right? So Facebook has a thing that's called targeted ads. And those targeted ads are pulled through GPS. So it means that my sister's phone knows that I Googled air purifiers because it pulled data when I was around her. It's a GPS thing. And so when this stuff is pulled, you get these targeted ads all the time in your feed. And so you can turn that off so it doesn't happen. And I would have these visual checklists on how to do it. It's step by step. It's insane because you have to put your password in so many times. Facebook doesn't want you to do it. It's how they get their money. But every day when there's a new Facebook update, those steps would change. And I would have to go and update those visual checklists. So anytime something updates, it changes. iOS, anytime there's an iPhone update, things change in how to do things. So like accessibility is different from the last update. So be aware that technology updates do throw wrenches in independence. It does mess things up in being able to independently do tasks because the steps change. All right. So, oh,